plucking eyebrows. A woman came, he said, Ibn Mas'ud, what are you saying? I have read the Quran from the cover to the cover. Where is it? Show it to me. He said, Ibn Mas'ud is a faqih. Ibn Mas'ud is one of the fuqaha, of the jurists of the Sahaba. But Ibn Mas'ud, he left Medina earlier. So many of the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't hear of. In the early days of da'wah, I have to stand now. In the beginning of Islam, Muslims used to pray, putting their hands between their knees in the ruku'. Understand this? That was in the beginning. And then this practice was abrogated, cancelled. Ibn Mas'ud, he didn't know about this. So he didn't know about the abrogation. So that knowledge didn't reach him. So he carried on praying as he was praying before. So that cannot be used against Ibn Mas'ud. Cannot be used because he didn't know. And the hadith didn't reach him. And in those days, the hadith, to reach someone, the distance you have to cover and travel. That's why many times Abu Hurairah used to sit with the Prophet ﷺ all the time. So he memorized many ahadith. So later on when he was narrating the ahadith, some of the Sahaba like Umar ibn Khattab, he said, did the Prophet ﷺ say that? He said, yes, Umar, but you were busy. I was next to his knee to the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, he said that. And I'll give this example. That Umar ibn Khattab was heading to Syria. Then he heard about the break of the disease, the plague. Then he asked the Sahaba, what do you think? The Sahaba divided into two groups. One saying, yes, we'll go. Some others say, no. This disease is very contagious, very dangerous, fatal. And Umar decided not to go. Only hundreds of the Sahaba, including Umar ibn Khattab, they did not hear the hadith about the plague. Imagine. So if someone asks you, is it possible that the Imam didn't know about this hadith? Tell him, yes, it is possible. Hundreds of the Sahaba, including Umar ibn Khattab, they did not hear about the hadith of the plague. Only one of them, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he heard it. And he went to respond to the call of nature. And he came back and he found the army on the move. He said, what happened? They told him. He said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ saying, if you hear of the plague in the town and you are inside that town, don't leave that town. And if you are outside, don't enter. Umar said, Alhamdulillah. Okay? So Ibn Mas'ud, he didn't hear of that, the hadith that this is abrogated. So we cannot use that against Ibn Mas'ud. Ibn Mas'ud is an imam, a jurist, faqih. So this woman said, oh, Ibn Mas'ud, I read the Quran. He said, had you read the Quran, you would have found it. But you didn't read the Quran with care. Didn't you read what Allah said? وَمَا آتَاكُمَ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Didn't you read that Allah said, whatever the Prophet ﷺ gives you, take it, and whatever he forbids you, abstain from it? Didn't you come across that ayah? He said, yes. He said, what are you talking then? He is the one who said a woman should not pluck her eyebrows. And Allah is saying, if He tells you don't pluck, you don't pluck. That is what the Quran is saying. Then this woman, she wanted to make Ibn Mas'ud angry. You know what she said? But your wife is doing it. Imagine. She wanted to provoke Ibn Mas'ud. He said, oh, Ibn Mas'ud, your wife is blacking her eyebrows. So why are you blaming us? You know what he said? He said, go and check. She went inside and came, said, sorry, she is not doing it. Then he told her, do you think she would have stayed with me if she was doing that? I would have divorced her immediately. She wouldn't have remained with me. That's what Ibn Mas'ud said. So the Sunnah, it explains the Quran. There will never be any contradiction between Sunnah and Quran. So either it details, this is one aspect we mentioned, it details the summarized. Second thing, it specifies the general, which means تخصص العام. تخصص العام. There is a general text, general statement, generic command. Allah said. Then the Sunnah comes and makes exception. Making exceptions is known as takhsis. You specify, you exclude, you exempt. Like what? Are you following me first of all? Good. I want now, we have two containers. This container and this container. In one container we write dead animals. Dead animals. In the other container we write blood. Blood. Any blood, put it in the container of the blood. Any dead animal in the container of the dead animals. Okay? Now, dead sheep in the container. Dead goat in the container. Dead cow in the container. Dead camel in the container. The fish in the market. Dead or alive? Dead. Where should we put it? In the container. It's dead. So those who are saying only we follow the Quran, we tell them according to your understanding, according to the Quran, you should not eat fish. Because fish is haram. Because the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah number 5 is saying, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةِ. Any dead animal is haram. And you only follow the Quran. And the fish in the market is dead. So you should not eat it. Understand? You should not eat it. Because the Quran is saying it is haram. Because you don't accept the Sunnah. Anything blood, put it in the container of the blood. It's haram. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةِ. Dead animals are made unlawful, haram. وَالدَّمْ, blood. Now, the liver, you know the liver? Is it blood or flesh? Blood. Put it inside. Spleen. Blood, put it inside. So the liver is haram. It is blood and the spleen. But the Sunnah came and said, no, there are exceptions. From this container, two components will come out. Two elements will remove them. The fish and locust. You know locust? Jarad. The locust. It is an insect that flies, you know. It is halal. And come in swarms, and they eat the grass, and they eat everything. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ said, though the locust is dead, but it is halal. The fish, it is dead, but it is halal. Exception. So what made the exceptions here? The Sunnah. The ayah says, the dead animals, general. What specifies it? What limited its generality? It's the Sunnah. Said, no, here there is an exception. What is exempted? The fish and the locust. The blood, the Sunnah came and said, no. The liver is halal, though it is blood, exempted. The spleen is blood, it is exempted. So you can see now the Sunnah specifies what? The general. That is second aspect, the relationship between Quran and Sunnah. The third aspect, that the Sunnah limited the absolute. In Arabic, as-Sunnah tuqayyid al-mutlaq. As-Sunnah tuqayyid al-mutlaq. The Sunnah limits the absolute.